Alright, let's begin. So, yesterday I left off on kind of a disappointing note because I didn't get any of my goals done for my terrain editor. But after multiple hours of total trial and error off stream, I was able to get it fixed. So the main issues from last time were the flickering. Basically, random textures would be black, well, semi-random. It was a very confusing pattern. But it all turned out to be, I was creating these textures that were shared between two different rendering devices. And then when I switched to just use the main rendering device and the main render thread, which took most of the time that I spent, I did not actually change this to just use a regular texture. And this turned out to be the actual culprit behind all of the confusion. So if we did something like this, where we do true or that, and then I close this, we'll then see the problem reemerge where, like, in a very confusing way, only terrain that has had its height changed, it turns black. And I actually realized even more baffling changes. So if we go back to my topographical map here, if I remove this component, and then it's just flat, it works perfectly fine. But it's only, for some reason, when I do the texel fetch and edit the vertex, it turns black. And I have no idea how on earth that is possibly a thing that happens, but it was just from creating these textures in that way. And then a lot of the other bugs, honest to God, I have no idea how I fixed them. Like, the painting was all, like, the paint algorithm that I have now is exactly the paint algorithm that I made on stream, where basically it creates these strokes that have line segments, and then the shader basically does exactly what it did, or used to, where it overlays these line segments and renders like the distance from the line. But it also subtracts the distance from the initial point on the line, so that way they don't overlap so much and cause like weird bumpiness. So if I totally flattened this out, let's go to like flat green, for example, here. And then we just make this radius big, this opacity high. So this will like just flatten the terrain totally. And then let's go back down. So yeah, I was having crazy bugs where like the terrain was like filling up the entire screen. There's polygon soup everywhere. I have absolutely no idea what I did to fix it. I fixed some other unrelated bugs, but I think it's like I was breathing differently at the end, and that's what fixed it. But okay, now we can have, for example, if I go back up to here, we now have these nice, smooth. There's still a little bit of warbling, but that might even just be my mouse. And I think, as I said before, there's also the fact that this is a 256 by 256 grid, and so it might just be, you know, too low of resolution for like as big of terrain that I'm editing. But then if we did like a slightly larger radius, so this lower fall off should be flatter, like that. And there is a little bit, I'm seeing now, there's a little bit of that overlapping circle still. But I also want to have things like smoothing and erosion and random noise, so that can fix that basically. And then if we go lower, this should be more pointy. And we can see that working pretty well. As I said, still not perfect, but it is pretty good. It does most of what I want, especially if we look at it from the top. We can see we have these relatively smooth lines, much, much better than it was before, but not perfect. But yeah, so I think really the only thing that I'd really need to get this like ready for At the Ends of Eras is the ability to paint other maps, so like other colors. I think they should be nearest. Or filter linear, because otherwise it's giving me a headache when it flickers between the colors. That doesn't help much. But yeah, you can see here we still have the ability to, like, you know, paint terrain and then move it around, and we can have this, for example, just add onto this. That's all nice and lovely. And then, oh yeah, it doesn't, oh yeah, because it adds negative values as well. We could do max or min, so we always lower terrain, always raise terrain. So you can see, I think the potential here is quite obvious. So I think my goals for today, then, are to get the arbitrary maps working. Because I think, you know, for things like texturing and shading and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I also changed the brush placement. So it's not accurate entirely yet, but it looks a lot better because now it just gets the 0 point. So it gets wherever my cursor intersects with the like ground plane. So as we get higher and higher, that gets less and less accurate. Oh wait, this is also add. Put that at mix. And then as we get up here, you'll be able to see that it's not accurate at all as the ground gets higher because it's only following where 0 is. So we could do that, but honestly, I think this works well enough for me where, like, my brain can adjust to this because it's still, like, a relatively one-to-one movement, unlike my previous version where it was, like, the weird distance stuff. You know, relying on, like, the camera's near plane and stuff. It was too complicated. Too weird. So yeah, I think today's agendas are to have the arbitrary maps. So I'm going to delete that. Going to put that in painting. Well, that's already in painting. Today's goals are going to be instead arbitrary color maps. So, like, how do I want this system to work? So, like, how do you view the maps? Or how do you create new maps? How do you store them? How do you edit them? And then, like, how do you view them? Because, like, in my terrain for At the Ends of Eras, like, there's multiple textures. There's, like, or like multiple variables on the vertices themselves, like the amount of ambient occlusion it has, how green it is, how much snow there is. And so I want that same system here for, I think, all of the stamps, maybe. Or maybe, basically, some stamps can have terrain, and some stamps will have the snow and stuff like that, and like other variables attached to them. And I think that's defined, that would be defined at the, like, top level with the height map. So, like, maybe the height map itself just has, like, we just have, like, export var layers, or, like, a color. Let's say attributes. And this is just an array of string name. I believe all of these will be simplicity. All will be RGBA 32 images, basically. And so you can just paint multiple colors on these. Oh yeah, and another thing that I want to do today, probably, is blend modes for the paint system. So arbitrary color maps, and then also painting mask modes. So basic, or like blend modes. So we'd still have things like min, max, add, subtract. And eventually what I can do with these is then have more advanced UI to, like, so instead of, like, having to pick a color here, because this is a rather unintuitive system where, like, you know, to lower terrain I have to slide it down from red to green, and then to lower the effect that the overall stamp has, I have to lower this, and then to lower the effect the brush has, I have to do this. A lot of knobs to twist that are kind of confusing. So basically I just want it to be, like, have eraser, add, you know, like, raise and lower terrain, level terrain, eraser, stuff like that. That's much more intuitive to use. But this will be the groundwork for that. And then do I want other ones? We could do crazier things like multiply and just arbitrary math. No, but I won't do that. So I think the way that it'll work is instead we'll have these attributes. And this actually might even be a dictionary. In fact, it probably should be a dictionary. Well, string name to image. Well. My... Hang on, let's also save this stamp. So that way we don't have... It just makes me anxious to have the strokes there because they take a long time to save, basically. In fact, save all these. Because, yeah, you can see now all of these are updated and all nice. I think this will be acceptable. Basically, yeah, we come up to here, we have this, and this will actually equal nothing by default. So yeah, we can create these new attributes. And let's say a set of RGBA 32 images. Bit RGBA images. That will be associated, or that will be available to edit. And that actually means we might want to have this be internal, and then we just have like a button to add things there. But for now, I should probably just think about the overall vision. Because, yeah, I think this is the correct way to have this. And basically, this will store the images that we have. So when we resize images... we're going to do 4... let's actually do this here. So, like, for... Oh, wait, should we have these be image textures? I guess we do need them to be textures anyway, so yeah. Go back up to that dictionary, image texture. So yeah, for AT in attributes. If not attributes, AT equals image texture new. And then we should probably also, while we're in here, do... I guess I'll put all of this stuff here. If vector2i attributes at get size is not equal to our output resolution, then set image. You know, I should probably just have a thing here where I can, like, create this. Yeah, you know what? I'll just have that as, like, a function output image format. I don't know what this actually is. I think it's just an int. And then we're just going to return image create output resolution X, output resolution Y. True. No, false. Format. It actually means that this is an image format. Okay. And the reason I need that is because now I can remove all of these. Imagine the day where this is actually, like, useful for some reason. But okay, that means that then I can just do output image dot format RGBAF. A whopping 128 bytes or whatever it's going to be. No, 4 times 4. No, it should be 16 bytes, but per pixel or per vertex or whatever it is. H image. Oh yeah, because this needs to return image. And then we can also have this just I love multi-cursor editing. All right. And so that now means that we should be creating these image textures whenever we create these, which should be at the appropriate point. And I think then that also means when we change this... Ooh, how do we make sure this is updated correctly? When we change the output resolution here, we should do colon set A attributes equals A, and then resize images, maybe? And then that should appropriately set all this stuff. So I should be able to now add, for example, let's say our main attrib. So did that actually update this? Wait, what happened? Image texture? I think now this doesn't do what I think it's supposed to do. Yeah, when we use a setter on a dictionary, is there some sort of rule for how this works? Because I think... Huh. And then I'm trying to think also, how would we do materials? We'd probably have it down in here. We'd have like attribute shader names. And basically like anytime we update one of these attributes, we would then set it to be whatever shader parameter is in the map appropriately. But I'll ignore that for now. Because, yeah, it seems like this is not correct. So I'll just have that not there. And then we'll just have that do whatever it's supposed to do when we do our other thing. So yeah, close that again. Come back into test 2. We would have our attributes here. Let's say main attrib. And then we do, I guess, just image texture, and we'd add that there. And then once we, like, run this, or do like that, it should then have resized this to be appropriate. Yeah, 1024 empty. And I think what I want then is the ability for stamps to be created that are blank. So yeah, because we have these terrain stamps. And I think the only thing that we need for the color stamps is instead of doing RGF, we would do RGBAF. And I think the rest of this would apply correctly. And so we should probably have like a base stamp type. Yeah, let's split that out. Or I guess actually even, let's see, elements. So when we have a stamp here, I think this is correct. But instead we're going to have a var height, or like var image format equals, do I want that here? No, I think I'm fine with that. I'll just create a new script. And we'll call this an attribute like attribute stamp. And this np terrain stamp. So tool class name np height, or no, np attribute stamp. And the only difference is instead of when we convert from raw, we're going to do RGB AF. And I believe all of the stroke information and all of that will work correctly with this. Let's double check though. Because yeah, we want our blend mixes. In fact, we should probably have this up like higher in the thing. You know, in like a more unified place here. Because we could have that in like the plugin itself. Let's call this actually class name np terrain. Which hopefully doesn't break it. In fact, I'll double check. So if we turn this off and on, any bugs? Any errors? First column blah, outside of column that? That doesn't seem to be my problem. And then yeah, we just put this up in here. And that means this is np terrain blend mode mix. Because yeah, this will also be used by the brushes. Which I guess isn't strictly necessary now, but we are going to be eventually doing that, so I might as well do a bunch of aimless refactoring that's going to eventually cause more problems than it fixes. And then that means actually, I think the terrain renderer. So if we go to blend mode, actually, oh, my brother's here. All right. So we'll eventually be doing image mix with multiple formats now, so I'll need to figure out how to do that in a way that's less confusing than it is now. Okay, but let's make sure everything still works. Because we can still move things around, and we can then do this. And what we'll need then is the ability, so if we go to np terrain, np renderer. Okay, because now we have the attributes rendering. Var attributes rendering. And this will actually be a dictionary of string name to bool. And so anytime that we are rendering a thing in here, we'll have to set it. Because we have to have the attributes rendered separately. Which won't be terrible. I guess that'll be fine, yeah. But okay, when we do attribute in the height map, what is the life of a height map? When we add an element here, we do all this connecting. And so we actually need, for example, this, if t is np attribute stamp. We're going to have not t.redraw requested is connected. I wish this wasn't an error to connect twice. I wish it was just like, I wish it just considered it idempotent and didn't bother with, just like, because it spits out an error if I don't do this. So we're going to have this be recompute attributes. And then t.redraw requested connect recompute attribute. And we'll just have this be pass for now. And actually, it needs the attribute here. String name. Print debug. Compute attribute. Take your time, Godot. And then we'll just have this, and actually we need this else here. I could just have like a function. S signal C callable. And then like if S dot, if not S dot is C, connect C. And then I basically just remove all of these if not blah 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 blah. Because we got 500 quadrillion of these. We can just do... In fact, we don't even need that there. And then we just do, instead of connect here, that. Doesn't that save us some time? Why is it taking so long? Is it because there's a bunch of strokes on this stuff? I think it is. Because you can see that these strokes contain a lot of information. So I'm glad that they're no longer, I'm glad that each line segment is no longer its own thing. That was a good refactor. Yeah, if we save all here, it should save faster because then it doesn't have that. It doesn't have this as like a custom image and stuff like that. Then we just save. And, should be faster? Okay. And then I'm also going to do, so if t is, recompute, no, if t is np attribute stamp, redraw requested, disconnect, recompute attribute. Else that. And yeah, I may want to have a better system here where like each stamp can decide what it is an attribute of. Oh, and I just realized these actually are no longer applicable. So we probably just need to have height stamps and attribute stamps be separate things. Do I want to bother, though? Not really. I don't care. Eventually I'll fix it so that basically this isn't visible. Or, you know, I'll just think of a better way of splitting up this code, but I should just make it work first. But yeah, so now we have the beginning and end of the life of this thing. And then our next thing is here, for example, we actually need to create different buffers here. Because when we add an attribute stamp, actually, first of all, we should have the ability to resize this thing. So, like, if we set the image directly, that should set the size. But then if we set the size, that should create a new image here. Yeah, let's have an export var size equals vector 2i, or dot 0. Set s if image size, or no, if not image equals image texture. Actually, is the image a... Go to terrain element. This is where the image is. Okay. New. Oh wait, no, we need to create the image though. Ooh. So we actually do need this format to exist because... Oh wait, no, we don't. Yeah, that doesn't matter because we can just create it however we want. So we just do s.x, s.y, and then false, and then image.format RGBA. We can just say RGBA 32, who cares? F, RGBA F. There we go. And actually, we could have this be another thing where we just create the image ourselves. And actually, we need this to be in the base format. So when we do... oh, right, probably some other crap. Terrain element. We actually need this here. Then we should probably have a function blank image, and that creates an image. So size equals s. If not image, elif image dot size is not equal to size, we will do image dot resize to size x, size y, and then I guess bilinear. No, interpolate cubic. So now you can basically set the image in two ways. You can set it here, or you can set it elsewhere. Yeah, and for now it'll just be RGBAF. We can make it more, we can set that blank image differently for these different things. And then we should probably have get just return, I don't care. The size can be whatever it wants to be. So cannot call method duplicate on a null value. Terrain element GD44. He is... Oh, wait, no. That's probably from what it was before, where we, like, did this. Image.duplicate. So, like, if not image, image equals blank image. And then we actually we just need raw image. Well, yeah, okay. Else it equals that. So now we can actually create the raw image directly. We don't even need to have an image, which is good, actually, I think. But yeah, so that means like this attribute stamp, so we could have like another 256 by 256. Oh, interesting. We can't do that. Size S. If S is not equal to image, why is this not working now? Let's say if size.x equals 0 or size.y equals 0, turn. So yeah, now we should have the ability to create blank images whenever we see fit. Eventually, I guess. Why is this not setting it? I thought this was just how it works. What if we just set this to 256 by default? Vector 2i, 256, 256. And then we should probably have it do like get if image return image.get size else return size. No, but is this infinite now? I'm going to do var size here. And we're just going to have this be underscore size here. And here, we're actually going to have the blank image here also use underscore size, which should always be set correctly. And actually, we should do like a clamp, or no, like a max of vector to 0. And I guess we can keep that there, just in case I remove this at some point, for whatever reason. I don't know why I would have negative sizes, but might as well have redundant logic here. Bad address index. Close that. Bad address index. Image width must be greater than 0 pixels. Well... What if we just do vector 2i 1 1? And then so it's always at least equal to 1. And then, yeah, if there's an image, we get the size of the image. Otherwise, we get this internal size. Will it work, though? So what is our issue here? So at 18, it's doing something. Terrain stamp. Underscore range.x. And then 13, it's doing the same thing. Underscore range.y. Why is range not good then? This feels like it's just broken. Like this isn't even the thing that I changed. So why would it be? Why would it be causing issues? So let's open it up. Maybe there's some error that's happening first. Okay, terrain renderer 382. I wish Control G worked in Godot, but it doesn't. Okay, 382. So what's happening, I think, is we're calling image mix on a thing. Terrain, so probably recompute. Probably in one of these. So subcompute height get elements this. So for stamp in renders.stamp, if not stamp image, continue. Okay. So image width specified 0 must be greater than 0 pixels. Well, I literally set that here, so if we go back to terrain elements. Size here should be at least, oh wait, no. Here, oh yes, there. Print creating image of size. And then that should do something. I don't get it. So who is causing the issue here? Because yeah, we can see here now. What if I just removed, if we go back to the terrain element, what if I just remove all this for now? Does that work? No, that doesn't work. So that, is that not even the issue? Then what's the issue? So 9, at line 9 in terrain stamp. So our first issue here is this range doesn't exist, even though it exists. Bad address index. What does that mean? Godot bad address index. So bad address index within the stack trace. No, that's not helpful. Because it seems to be that this underscore range doesn't exist anymore, which doesn't make any sense, because if we actually look at... What have I changed so far? It's crazy how we're not even into, like, the actual, like, logic yet. We're not even in the hard part yet. It's literally just... We created a dictionary of things. So this is the only... So we only have... When we set raw, we can create a blank image. Oh, but hang on. Blank image also needs to do things. So if we go back to here, when we do blank image, var or size equals max or size max vector 2i11. This might be being called earlier than the other stuff, but that doesn't seem to be. That's still not going to fix our thing. So I think, also just to be safe, I'm just going to restart Godot, because I think sometimes it just gets in a bad state where it forgets that, like, the code is working. It just doesn't know what the code is. Invalid call, non-existent function set element on base nil. Okay, so let's fix that first. Terrain plugin.gd. Is that because enable plugin, disable plugin handles edit? So if we go 156, why is that being called before something exists? Element widget. So this element widget, so track, this function is being called before the element widget is created, which is when we enable the plugin. We enable the plugin first. But for some reason, edit is being called before we actually edit a thing. If not element widget. Print, so push warning. Because yeah, basically we need to do, we need to do this. So add control to container, instantiate meshes, create meshes. Are we doing things maybe? No, this feels like it's completely reasonable. But okay. So if we come into here, where's this pillar anyway? Oh yeah, it's just an add filter, and it's going to be basically totally overpowered by everything else that's happening. These pillars, though, look at them. But okay. That's neither here nor there. But at least it starts up without the weird errors. So I think it was just Godot forgot that it's supposed to work. And then we can save that, close it, go back to test 2 because it's much simpler. Oh wait, but it's going to be the attribute. Okay. Yeah, so no error. Literally just Godot forgot that it's supposed to work. And here, we have those errors. That's good, because that means that we need to have our attribute stamp here do its thing. And that's because if we go to terrain renderer... Oh, wait, but that's going to be... Okay, I see what we need to do, though. Draw requested. I think redraw requested needs to have the stamp with it, maybe? Or maybe we just don't care. Because basically, if we come into here, or terrain stamp, or terrain element, one of these has the redraw requested signal. Yeah, here, I'm just going to have this be like notify movement. And what I'll have is attributes will not use redraw requested. They'll use signal redraw attribute. a redraw requested attribute string name. And then what we're going to need soon is a dropdown where it gets the attributes from the height map. And so when we have function notify movement, we're actually going to do a super notify movement and also redraw requested attribute dot emit with our attribute. And for now, I'm just going to have that as an export var attribute string name. And basically to do, make a dropdown based on available attributes. And now what we'll have is, instead of redrawing based on the main signal, there's like a lot of stuff in here. Hang on. What's happening? Something in here isn't quite correct. So I'm just going to redraw it, save files. And that should make it so that it doesn't have issues. But okay. So we go back up to the height map, and we're going to change this here to redraw requested attribute. And look at how much less redundant stuff there is. So now I'm thinking... Oh yeah, but now we have to close this and open it again, because it still has the bad signals, or incorrect signals. So now if we move this, it should do nothing. And we can have like main attrib. And we should have main attrib here. Okay, good. And then if we move this... Well, it was supposed to do something, hang on. Recompute attrib. Didn't we have this do a thing? Why is this not working? Because if we go back to redraw attribute requested, notify movement, super notify movement, redraw attribute requested. All right, no, we don't need those at all. So this is 256 by 256 by default. That's good. And then I want to have back this code here, because it seems like my errors that I was encountering had nothing to do with these. Oh yeah, and then we need to have that back. And then it's going to die because it doesn't like that. Could not resolve external class element add element. No, you could. No, you could. Yeah, Godot was wrong. I think sometimes we just have to close everything. Oh, wait, I see. I just didn't have info printed here. Yeah, because we're creating an image already. So yeah, when we create this attribute stamp, does that. Good. And we should have the image in here, so I don't know why we don't. Isn't it already here? So if we go to like here, so these are correctly sized, but that's no surprise because we sized it manually. So this was supposed to get a size. Terrain stamp, and that is a terrain element. Enter tree here. And also, I don't care about that right yet. So when we create this blank image, size max 1, 1. Creating image of size that. That should be happening here. If not image, image equals blank image, image set size equals size. So maybe if I set this to like 12, 256, and then this should exist. Print resizing image to size. Because it says image equals blah. And we can see that's doing all its stuff here. Ooh, but hang on. This should actually be... I guess that's fine, actually. Well, not quite, actually. We need to have, like, a notify movement there. Okay. So then, okay, so we're getting that. And then the question is, why is this, don't save. It should tell us when we're creating a new thing. Creating image of size 1, 1. Not correct. Incorrect, Godot. You know, print a stack here. What's happening here? And why isn't it, like, applying correctly? Okay, so blank image, set raw, enter tree. So enter tree has this before we have our other things. Enter tree, convert raw. I think we just need to do size equals size, maybe? And then we do our thing. Because, yeah, it seems like Godot has a weird relationship with these export variables. And, like, properties in general, where it can set these, but then when it sets them, it doesn't properly do its thing here. Unsupported format 4, data of object slice 0, different in size than what was supported by that. Rendering device, uniform set, blank image, size setter, enter tree. Okay, good. And now, it still isn't correct. But, let's do 4, and then, like, get path then. So we can see even more accurately why this is occurring. Because now, at least, it's, like, in the correct place. So, unsupported format for blank. Oh, now it's not even creating it. Oh, because the image is no longer... Right. Well, why is that 1 by 1 when it says 256 by 256? What the fuck does max do? Because I thought this got the maximum of 2 integers. You know what I mean? But it seems like it gets the minimum of 2 integers. Wait, what the hell? Oh, I see. I don't see. Why are there 2 different things here? Okay. So print debug s max with, or let's say this, size. Because yeah, a bunch of weird stuff here. Like the fact that it doesn't tell us the sizes and stuff. Okay. So creating image of size 1. So 256 max 256. 00 max 0 at this. Why is that there? So NP attribute stamp clearly has a size of 256 by 256 because that's what's set here. So if I did 128 then, does that change this? No. Naturally it doesn't change that. Because of course it wouldn't change that, because why would it change that? Even though there's code here that says that, like this, the setter is supposed to run. Because that is what the setter and getter are supposed to do. So why are the setter and getter not running? I thought this was kind of like one of the things that it had here. So like print debug size set for get path. Because the getter isn't working and the setter isn't working. And it's very interesting to me. So yeah, size set for terrain stamp 3, attribute. Unsupported image format 4, data for slice index 0, differs in size than what is required by the format. Okay. So when we convert, that should do that. So now we have this entirely different issue. And that's because presumably it's trying to render something, like it's trying to render this attribute stamp as a like RGB or RGA, whatever it is. Okay, but if I change this, 128, okay. It was supposed to be a setter. It was supposed to set it. That's why it's called a setter. This function is supposed to run whenever you set this variable. So why is it not running? Why is this the thing that I'm stuck on? Okay, I have a good idea. Remove this crap. And then we're just going to do size equals size max. Size here. And we don't need that there. We're just going to clear that. And so that way, basically, anytime we need a new image, and so, yeah, when we enter the tree, we set size equal to size. What I'm actually going to do is if not image, image equals blank image. So by default, we'll always create a blank image. And so now if we come back to test 2. Creating image of size that for this. And actually, I'm going to just call this for name. Okay. And now the other question is, why was everything here set to 0 by default, and why can't it be changed, and why is it all fucked up? But okay, now we have a 256 by 256 image. Good. And now we have that. And then NP terrain stamp. So let's go back to height map. So let's just get the like boilerplate stuff working first. So like when we recompute all, or like stamps here, I know, get elements. So we now need this to do some other stuff. Var dictionary or attributes array. Oh no, this is going to be a dictionary of string name array. And because we can't have nested types, that'll be awesome. So get elements for E in that. And actually we need this to be var lm equals that. And that for E in lm attributes for in that for E in lm attributes at free result E. So yeah, when we recompute all, we will then do subcompute. Well, we don't need that yet. Basically, we just come into here, add element children. If it is a terrain stamp, we add it to stamp. Unless if C is NP attribute stamp, results add attribute stamp C. And that's just going to be function add attribute stamp A attribute stamp. If not A dot attribute, we'll just push an error there. Stamp has no attribute. A dot name. Elif A dot attribute not in attributes. Attributes A dot attribute equals nothing. And then we will do attributes A dot attribute append A. There we go. Huh? Oh, result. There we go. Okay. Oh, I see. And why? The reason that I'd have this as a recursive thing is so that way we can do that. I was wondering why this was, like, structured this way, but okay, that makes sense. Okay, good. So now, the main thing was I did not want the, if we did save all here, for example, or like redraw all, it should not have any errors now, because now we're handling the attribute stamps differently from the other things. And then we should have the ability to, when we save everything, let's see. So when we create our attributes here, we have this thing there. Okay. We're going to do for AT in attributes. Attributes AT equals save image as. This will be get data or get image. No, var image equals AT. Image get data. To image format image dot format RGBAF. And then this is at. Okay. So now we should also save that attribute, which is probably why that's taking so long to save. But now we can see main attribute is also saved. And right now, totally empty. So I'm also seeing a lot of... It seems like we're saving it twice, though. Height map normals, holes, collider, height map normals, holes, collider. Which is interesting. Why is that happening, actually? Let's print the stack then. Because yeah, I'm not sure why that's being done twice. Huh. Oh, wait, okay. Never mind. Wait, I might be stupid. I think it only did it once. So collider, holes, normals, height map. Okay, no. It was because I pressed the save button twice. That was why. So if we press save files again, it should only do that. Okay, yeah. It only does it once. I was dumb. I thought it was like duplicate things, because I do have a lot of duplicate computation at times. Where'd the stuff go for this? This seems like it's like inverted from what it was. Let's add. No, let's just mix this. Oh, I see why it looks different. It's because... Okay. Well, I don't quite get it. Lower opacity or something? What if we did a min there? That's fun. Yeah, the downside of this topological design is the fact that like it flickers to these different colors as I push it up. But okay, let's ignore that. So now we have stuff saving appropriately. Now we need to do the actual hard parts, which are the ability to actually, so we can create them, we can store them. Now we need to edit them, and that's going to be back in here. We should start with, I think, the ability to paint onto them. Or maybe, no, I think maybe what we need to do, because I can, for example, put this there. Oh, wait, no. Put this there. Oh, wait, but this is an image, not an image texture. Don't we have the other images, though? So if we go back to my sample maps, I can just put bowl here, for example. That'll be okay for now. So yeah, I think we start with the plane stamps as they are. So we will not have any special rendering here, because yeah, that'll break. Actually, it seems like it surprisingly didn't break. But okay, let's have our shader do some things. So when we render meshes here, we're going to have export var mesh render attribute parameters, or like attribute shaders will be a dictionary of string name to string name. Shader, yeah, mesh shader remap. So basically, map the attributes to the shader parameters for rendering. And what we can do is, if we go to materials here, We could actually have, I think eventually I want this to be like a main, what am I trying to say? Eventually this will be what I want. We'll have the ability to like more flexibly remap things. Because right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have an attribute debug. And that's just going to do basically the height map whole, but we're going to duplicate it. And we're going to call this height map colorize. And basically this now is going to have a uniform sampler 2D attributes. And we're actually going to have this be a blend mode, or render mode blend mix. So this is going to be totally transparent instead of what we have here. So we're going to do color times color. Color is not going to be here now. It's going to be attribute. UV. So let's say var c equals this. No, whoops. Vec4. C and then alpha equals c.a. And so this will be like attribute. Oh wait, no. Attributes. Yeah. Okay. And what's the bug here? Color is never used. Okay, we can just do color times C times that. And probably color times C.A, or color.A times C.A. And that will now let us have a height map that's colorized. And we'll do main attribute to attributes. And then, yeah, here we're going to do height map colorized instead. And then when we update materials, because that's where we set all these shader parameters, we're going to do for AT in attributes. If AT in mesh shader remap, mesh material set shader parameter, mesh shader remap at into attributes at. Okay. And so now what we should be able to do is redraw, and that's invisible because this is invisible. So now our next challenge will be, oh, let's see, is this something that's happening right now? Mesh terrain renderer. Let's try this again. So if I redraw, no bugs, okay. And that's because if we come into this attributes, totally transparent, height map, everything is set up correctly. And so now what we need to do is actually start mixing in these stamps, which I'm realizing now, it's actually going to be very difficult to apply them in the way that... Wait, actually... No, it won't be terrible. Basically, I was thinking, like, do I need an extra mask? So that way you can set the alpha. But I think I can do that through... We could actually have that be in here somewhere. Like, we have it instead of applying its opacity, or basically just have some sort of extra mask stamp if we really want that. Because it'll get quite complicated. But yeah, so now what we need to do is we need to actually have the redraw for stamps, which shouldn't be too bad. Go to height map. Recompute attributes. So if compute start, And not renderer dot rendering, or attribute rendering attribute. Actually, we should have and renderer dot start rendering pass. So I'm going to have that, if we go into here, let's put this, so after all of our freeing stuff, and after all of our uniform, sampler uniform, add job, build normals, etc. Get bounds, line mix. I guess I'll have it just as like one of our things here. So start render stroke line, render normal. So yeah, let's do this. Function attrib render, or let's say attrib start render string name. So if attributes in rendering attributes and I'm gonna actually call this AT. Return false. Else attributes rendering AT equals true. Return true. Okay. So basically, then we're going to do a sub compute attribute. And that's going to be what we actually do here. So like for attribute in attributes sub compute attribute. And that's going to be with all of our other subcomputes. Attrib with an R. There we go. And then we should have like a compute completed. Call deferred. There we are. Oh wait, but that should only be if it's actually done. Okay, so now the next step is here. We need to do var objects equal, or stamps equals get elements dot get stamps attribute. If stamps, so if not empty, we actually, let's just do this. If stamps is empty, return. And actually, we don't even need to do that then. But okay, when we submit, actually, when do we set like rendering height? Okay, we do that here. So we're also going to do attributes clear right there. But okay. Here, when we get elements, we're going to also get our attribute stamps. So function get attribute stamps, a string name array, and if not attributes, or if not a in attributes, return an empty array, else return attributes a. There we are. So now we have this thing here. Oh. Okay, so sub compute attribute. Oh. Thank you, my brain. So if we have that, and then for a np attribute stamp in stamps, I'm going to need to remember how to do heights. If not stamp image return or continue. Otherwise, what does render stamps do that we don't do? I think we kind of actually just do exactly the same thing, because I think image mix will work with both of these. Yeah, because I think... Let's go to image mix here. The only thing we would need to change is changing this into a R32 or RGBA32F. And I think I can do that. So when we do a render stamp, I'm going to change this to mean, let's do like height map shader. And then this is going to be actually holes shader. Okay, because now image mix is actually going to have this as the shader here. And var holes equals shader equal to hole shader. Oh. And then we don't even need that at all, because we already needed that. And buffer, ooh, this one will be tricky, because we actually need to create buffers for each of the attributes that we have. So yeah, we have inverse transform, element, shader. I think we should actually just match on the element instead of doing all this stuff. Yeah, where we don't need this, we don't need that. And in fact, that means we don't even need to have a different thing here. We can just have this be np terrain element. And then when we do like a render hole, this is just going to be render stamp again. Which now, if we go back to this, I think the issue here is that, okay, now this is going to be E is np terrain hole. And then shader here is now going to be, let's match on a thing. Alrighty. Map, so if E is np terrain hole, then shader equals hole shader. Elif E is np attribute stamp, shader equals RID, to do. Elif E is np terrain stamp equals depth, no, height shader. Okay. So that should do that. Renderer begin height map. Renderer, we'll have to renderer dot reset attributes. Attribute. And then we're just gonna do renderer render stamp. Stamp. And in fact, I don't need this at all. Oh, and then we need inverse transform. Which I guess we should have here as well. So, like, elements. And then, inverse transform 3D. Okay. And then here as well, we just have elements. Okay. I think I'd prefer this to be this way. Okay, so now this is like part of the same system as the rest of these. Get elements, get inverse transform attribute. There we are. So now the real thing that we'll need to do is when we render the stamp here. We then need to have this be a different texture. Or we then need actually a few things. Begin attribute. Attribute. When we resize images, does that also do it on the... When do we size images in the renderer? Because the first thing I need is basically this, except GBA32F output image. Do we need any of this at all, actually? We don't. We only need the, I guess, starting position of the shader in target space blend mode. We don't need the height range at all, but I'm going to keep that because I don't have the mental do thing to do that. This is going to be image mix RGBA. And then we should rename this one to image mix, hang on. Rename to RG. So that now here, RG. Okay, I actually need to use the bathroom, so I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I'm back. And I see the music is very quiet. Why is that? I guess just this song is quiet. Alright, so we now have new things. We need to have the attribute shader, and that's going to be attribute shader. This is going to be an RID, as you might imagine. Almost identical to this one. A. And then our output needs to be somewhere in here. There's going to be var attribute out dictionary string name. Okay. So whenever we set up our thing here, check size. So actually, when do we run check size? Oh, right, we run it in the begin attributes phase. So I think what I'm going to do is we actually need to have this for a specific thing. So we're going to go to begin attribute. I'll just do it here. Function attribute output resolution, and then like attribute string name. And that's going to do whatever it does. Wait, no, we literally have that in we literally have that right here when we begin the attribute. Subcompute. Wait, then what do we, then? I'm just going to do this. And actually that means output resolution attribute there. Because this is now going to be output resolution vector 2i at string name. And now when we create these attributes, I guess we just check size again with output resolution. Actually, no. What I'm going to do is basically, if not in out attributes out. There we go. Then we're going to do attributes out equals shared texture formats. So data format RGBA 32 sfloat output resolution. elif at is not equal, or at, ooh, how do we do this? Not equal to wait, what? Where's our dictionary of stuff then? Result samplers, attributes rendering, attribute shader, attributes out. Okay. There we are. So if we don't have the attribute in here, we just render it, or we just create this new thing. And otherwise what I can do, I'm going to copy this and just put this in here where we check size. Hang on, go back to there. I'm like losing my mind. There we go. Okay. When we free the buffers, we do this here for AT in attributes out at free from GPU, and then attributes out clear. Okay, too many arguments here. Attrib. Wait, where? Oh, I see. Output resolution. So now we create this attributes buffer on demand. And that has the correct format right there. And then what I'm going to do is... let's see. We then just render the stamps, right? So subcompute attribute. Yeah, we begin in the attribute. We actually don't need that now at all because we do that earlier. We get the attribute stamps. If it's empty, we return. Which actually, we should do that earlier, I think. Or in elements, get attribute stamps. Okay. Because, yeah, we can just do this here. If elements has attribute. Let's say if not that, we'll continue. All right, no, and get elements. Let's do var e equals. There we are. Okay. So now what we do is when we get the elements, we also have a function called has attribute. Function has attribute. Bool return a in attributes and attributes a dot has and it's not empty. There we go. Okay. So now when we recompute an attribute, we just do this. We don't get, or we get the elements. If there is no elements of that type, we do that. And then we can also have, probably here, print debug rendered %d items in %s. And that would be e.get attribute stamps for your size and attribute. Okay, there we are. And this should... Oh wait, and actually we don't even need that. We just need the one item. There we go. And I'm going to call this like a star. Or maybe a $sign. Okay, let's see if that works. It crashed the game immediately. Probably because, first of all, oh wait, we don't need that anymore. We need this to be RGBA32F. We now need it to also, when we output the image, so we're actually going to do float here. So vec4 texture by cubic. We got that. That's correct. Vec4 color equals that. Don't need terrain height at all. Or I guess we'll have like vec4 original. So source height range y, color.r. We don't need that. Nope. And vec4 result. So blend mode equals 0. This is what, add? This is going to be color. And this is going to be original. And we don't need position.y at all. And then we don't need this because we're going to do... Oh wait, I guess we are going to do this. We're going to do .rgb a there. And actually the result needs to be vec4 result.rgb1 because we get the result oh wait, no, we get the color alpha there. Okay. So this should now be, let's go through this. So we get the coordinates of our thing, the same way that we do for the regular height map stamps. And then we get the centered coordinates due to whatever we need to do there. We get our source position, which should not depend on anything fancy, so we use the same shader code there. Then we get a bicubic sample rather than just a simple other thing. And that gets us a vector 4 here. Yeah, because we just get our things and we mix them. And then we load the original image, which is our output, at these coordinates. And then we go through our blend mode. So this does not need position Y. Okay, so this is our typical mix. We just get the color that we've sampled as a result. If it's additive, we obviously add the two together. If it's min, we do that. If it's max, we do that. Okay, that all seems good. And then when we store this, we store it in the original image at these coordinates. And we are mixing. We actually don't need this here because we just mix the original with our result, which has one alpha here because we're not altering the alpha except for via this. Okay, that seems correct. And so that means we come back into here. I wonder why it crashed. It's still really funny to me that I was blocked for like an hour trying to get the fucking properties to work. Like the getters and setters just don't work anymore. Okay. Unsupported image format for whatever I did. Oh, because we have an RID that's not running. Okay, so if we go back to Terrain Renderer, RID. Here, this now needs to be our attribute shader. And then our output image. So basically, buffer is also an RID. So yeah, if holes, oh wait, no, this is a shared texture. Buffer equals holes out. If stamp, no, if E is np attribute stamp, attributes out E dot attribute, else equals whole, no, height map out. There we go. Oh yeah, and then we need to turn this off and on again. Because for some reason, actually, did we get that warning here? Yeah, the engine does not call enable plugin until after like some period of time, which is awesome. But okay, if we move this, didn't happen. Don't save that. Try it again. Run it again. Not a valid texture. Differs in size than what is required by the format, which is that. Okay. So it's half the size thereabouts. So differs in size supplied than what is required by the format. Because if we go to attribute stamp RGBAF, so texture is not a valid texture. Uniforms were never supplied for set that at time of drawing, which is required by the pipeline. Data for slice index 0 differs in size than what is required by the format. Let's do 262.144 divided by 256 divided by 256. 4. Okay. So we have 4 bytes per... So it's a 256 by 256 image, but it has 4 bytes per... I think this must be in floating point numbers. Because it would make sense for it to be floating point. But okay, let's test what 104.8576 is. Oh, but hang on. Okay. So, does it think this is supposed to be a different format? So, this should be RGBA32F. Let's double check what that is. Vulkan RGBA32F. Okay, because that's correct there. So our source sampler, output image, size of the main image. Unused here. So yeah, I should probably have these like reorganized so that way they can be like common, but I'll do that later. Uniform set is null. So create or like shared. Oh wait, no. Renderer. Texture. Let's do this. So if main equals RD or local equals RD, push error could not create texture. Hang on. Try this again. Okay, good. So our supplied texture is 4 times bigger than the required texture. Why would that be? And I'm also not sure where this is like specified. Unsupported image format for that. So if we did image uniform here, uniform add IDP image. So where is this error happening? Because uniform set is null, which tells me that at some point it must be setting something null that I can check and then throw errors earlier in the process so I can actually see like what exactly is causing the issue here. Because clearly it must be that, because if these move... Okay, so these are still fine. So that makes sense. Servers, rendering, render output, parameter, uniform set is null. Uniforms were never supplied. This seems very similar to the kind of bugs that I was having for the new paintbrush. So it's unfortunate that I never figured out why that didn't work until it did. Because yeah, it doesn't like this texture for some reason. And that some reason is it's 4 times bigger than it's supposed to be. But it's supposed to be a quarter of the size that it would actually be to be an RGB A32. Oh wait, hang on. When we do a sampler uniform... Okay, hang on here. If E result image, if E is raw image, cached sampler from image, image GPU. Okay, and that gets okay, that gets a format here. So that's fine. But this could be where this issue is. So what if we did if C dot, or if not C dot sampler or not C dot texture, print debug could not convert image the image dot resource path. Try this on for size. Maybe that's where we have this. Could not convert image. Okay. So we at least have that there. Doesn't tell us much, but image uniform. No, stamp. You know, print the stack here. Try this again. So that'll get us a bit closer to figuring out what's happening here. So, sampler uniform. And that's going to be here, and then basically if not sampler.sampler or not sampler.texture, print push error could not create sampler uniform for e.name. Okay. And that'll just confirm what we confirmed before. And so that means that I should probably figure out what the image format is. So, like, why would this actually be causing problems then? Because the format of... we get the format of the image directly from it, right here. So RD texture format new, data format from image. Oh, because we don't have RGBAF in here. Oh, and that's exactly why this was calling here. Wait, but then why doesn't it tell us the file path there? I thought push error, like the whole point of push error was to tell me the error. Okay, so the whole issue was because I didn't have all the formats in here. So now if we come back into here, should be a little bit better. Could not create... oh wait, let's close this and then start again. Could not convert image colon. So data for slice index 0 of different sizes than what is provided by the format. Oh, right. I'm like losing my mind. Okay, but then if I move this, we are doing something. We're not doing very much, it seems. So if we come back into this height map, like this is supposed to be, so if we transform, no, if we save these files here. So our main attribute is still not quite correct. Why would that be actually? RGBA float, no MIP maps. When we render the stamp, so fix get bounds for performance. Yeah, eventually. Well, actually, eventually I'd probably have an even better way of doing this, where anytime any stamp moves, I just get the bounds of what's moved, and then, like, render that. That'll be for another day. So low, high, image size, start corner, end corner job size. If not holes, we encode the blend mode. So our buffer here is correctly deduced. Oh, but we don't actually set the result anywhere. Okay. I forgot. We then need to do, when we update materials... Wait, no. We do that. When we... Hang on. Let's do, like, recompute height maps. So not render, subcompute, call deferred. So when we complete computing and then sync... update materials. Okay. What we need to do here is for this stuff, we actually need to do for in attributes, if renderer or if at in renderer dot attributes out, we actually now need another thing here, which is var attributes rd. This will be just a dictionary of string name to texture rd. If not at in, or if at, I have a good idea. If at this attribute is not in attributes rd. Okay, and then if it's in here, we do attributes rd at equals renderer dot attributes out at dot main, and this needs to be texture rd, and then we need to set this, so instead of attributes at, this now it's going to be rd. Okay. Basically, we set our render device, and actually this can just be if we have the actual render there. Okay. And now that should actually kind of work, maybe. Oh wait, but it's going to crash again, because we didn't actually set any of that up until now. And then once this is done, it should be pretty easy to also get this working with the brushes. So access key main attribute on base of type dictionary string name texture 2D RD. So that's at 341, which I mean... Oh, because we actually need this at all. Okay, so we do need this always. And then when we recompute all, we'll eventually call deferred there. Okay, test 2. Okay. Hang on, plugin, turn that off, turn it on. Inexplicable error with that, but now we have this stamp here. And you can see the next thing that I need to do, which is add the reset, because it doesn't actually clear the result buffer here. But this does kind of... But yeah, this does show what I want. And so we could actually now, I think if we save all here, we should be able to see the result in our main. It should have worked. Why did it not work? Attributes, again. So for AM in attributes, image get... Oh, yeah. We don't get the data here. We get it from... For at in renderer dot attributes out dot get attribute. Let's say get. So that's going to be the same as this, where we basically just do function packed byte array. Okay. So now that should work. So now if we did this, save that, it should also save the attributes properly, unless it just crashes. Oh no, okay, look at that. So now we have the attribute. And so yeah, then the next step is to actually properly have a way of clearing that, which should be very easy. We just need to get our reset. I'm going to rename reset GLSL. This will be reset R32. And then this will be GBA, RGBA. And that just does the exact same thing. And so come into here, reset.r. This is now going to be R32. And then we'll have our reset attrib, reset shader. This will be our GBA, that. And then when we begin an attribute shader, or like attrib start render, attributes out share texture, if size that, if at this, that, check size. Then we need to do work q append reset bind. What is in bind? Yeah, because we get the shader, the local texture, and then the size. Okay. Set, no, attribute reset shader, attributes out at, and then the size would be output resolution. Okay. And that should then work. So if we close that, let it reload. Kind of. Except for the fact, oh right, because this texture isn't properly set up at the very beginning. So we have to move this around a little bit. There we go. It still doesn't reset it though. Oh right, because we're doing a return true, return false here. We need to have what do we do? In attributes rendering. There we go. Now it should reset it. Almost. Try it again. Not quite. So, uniform was never supplied. It set that. So this seems to be the exact same thing that I was having issues with before. But okay, whenever we reset... Actually, I'm going to have this up with the other begin functions. So yeah, we check the size here. And then we reset with this thing. And actually, we don't even need to have output resolution there, because we'd have that in the thing. So attributes out. So we should have attributes out set here. Yeah. Yeah, we check size. Reset. If in attributes rendering and attributes rendering at, we return false. Otherwise, we set attributes rendering to true, and then we append this reset here. Attribute reset shader. Oh, do I never actually... no, I do that. So RGBA. So it should provide one ID reference. Parameter uniform set is null. Let's try this again. Okay. Parameter uniform set is null. Dispatch of X compute groups is 0. And that's because I'm realizing now, do we actually... I think we need to have this for this. Yeah, I think we should just run check size And then if not in that... Okay. Oh, but I'm realizing this isn't run... This needs to be run in the, Okay. This here needs to still be work, queue, append, attribute start render, bind, output, resolution, at. Because then what we do is we have this here. And then we would not have this do that, we would just have it reset there. Basically reorganizing this stuff here. Not all code paths return a value. Oh yeah, we don't need Boolean anymore. Okay. So basically, in the main thread, what we do is we set these like rendering flags, and then if it's already busy with those, we return false. Otherwise, we set it to true, and then we append this to the work queue with that, not infinitely recursive, and we return true that it has successfully started that. And then we do our start render. Okay. And so if I try this again, well, at least this time it kind of started up part of it. So that fixed one of the issues, which was when the texture was not like loaded at the start. But we still have the issue where a texture isn't being supplied. So image should provide one ID referencing a texture. And that's because, why would that not be happening? When we do image mix with E here, oh wait, is it because the image needs to be, so here we have that, image texture, so buffer local, input buffer, oh, this source, hang on, what is this source from? No, that's wrong. Isn't it? Wait, hang on, what the hell is this? Oh wait, no, that is correct. That's like our constant thing. No, sampler.uniform. So this sampler here, what is this from? That's from that. So image uniform here. If not output uni. Well, no, wait, hang on. It would say that this isn't working. Okay. Image, binding 0, should provide one ID referencing a texture. Which we should have from this. So our uniform is an RD uniform new. Binding is this, so uniform type sampler with texture. Binding, add ID, add ID. And that gets us our created uniform here. Uniform sampler texture. And that's a thing that I also created. Or no, it's a sampler uniform. Is it because the shader doesn't exist yet, or the attributes out doesn't exist? Yeah, because the... Oh, wait, no, I keep forgetting. It's reset. Specifically, reset is what's causing issues. Oh, because... I keep forgetting. Reset does not use the attribute set. So when we do this, this needs to be local. And for some reason, there's no type checking on it, which is crazy to me. But okay. Okay, now it's fixed. Yay, hooray. And then if we scale it, it does all the same thing that it does before. So now we have... Our next step would be the ability to paint on this. And as you might imagine, that doesn't do anything, but this, our rotation still does. And then we should be able to have, like, these two blend together. Actually, what happens if we do icon? Oh, wait, no. We need to have, I guess, just a duplicate of this, and this is going to be icon test. And I'm just going to make this into an image. Because I want to test that on there. Okay. Look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? This is what makes it all worthwhile, folks. Because now we have the ability to, like, basically just drop in whatever images we want to do whatever we want with them. So you could have, like a base texture that's like a map or something, or literally anything, because this is just arbitrary. Like, because I can have as many of these attributes as I want, and I can paint them and edit them and all that stuff. So yeah, if we come back into here now, we should be able to see main attribute. There we go. So now we basically just have an image editor. Okay. Get status. So attributes are now work with stamps. So yeah, the next step is the painting, which should not be very hard because all we need to do is take our blend stroke height, stroke mix height, duplicate this, or I guess just... Oh. There we are. So we have our, BA, BA. And so the only thing that we would do instead of... what would we do? What are we doing differently here? I think this is exactly it. I think this is just exactly the same thing. So this is going to be mix stroke, or stroke mix RGBA. Oh, what's the issue here? Syntax error, right paren identifier. What did I just do? Did I add that by mistake? Oh, wait. Wait, what? What did I change here? Oh, I've still had this open the whole time. Okay. Okay, well, that's supposed to be R. Okay. Now we go back to the renderer, and when we do stroke complete, or render stroke, so what we need here is if E is NP. Well, actually, now we can kind of just have the element dictate this. Yeah, I'm not going to have that shader there. I'm going to have that shader var shader equals shader stroke height shader if E is No. Let's say stroke RGBA shader if E is NP attribute stamp, else stroke height shader. And then we just come into here, RGBA. As classic, we need to do a million shader things. Let's go to GBA. Okay, and then we also need to go back to our shaders. When we free shaders, we have a lot of new ones here now. Shader. I'm going to put this one there. Yeah, there we go. So now we free a lot more resources. And if we go test 2, I'm thinking this should just work, because I've set up the code in such a way that I should just be able to paint on it now. I'm not seeing my funny texture painting thing anymore. Actually, wait, that's a strange thing. Oh, because it's... Okay, I see. But okay. There's the errors. What's the errors? Differs in size from what is required by the format, which is half the size because, presumably, I haven't set something up correctly. Oh, probably the line mix. Ah. Wait, no, that's correct. No. Yeah, because the opacity does its own thing. GBA. So, shader, if E is attribute stamp, else stroke height shader. And then actually, when we do that... Oh, and I just realized why we can't see it, even if it does work, is because if we come back into this height map, if we do stroke continued, render stroke line here, and actually, tempted to free invalid ID. Okay, so we'll need to fix that. So render stroke line. This doesn't no, that does exist. Render stroke here. We need to do recompute height map if E. No, if E is NP attribute stamp, we do recompute attribute E dot attribute. Else, we recompute the height map. And that should at least puke and die in an interesting way. But it doesn't, sadly. And yeah, sadly we do not see our beautiful shader on top of this anymore, because it doesn't write to the depth buffer. Oh, that makes sense now. I was wondering why it wasn't working. Okay. But yeah, so our image is twice as big as it expects, which leads me to suspect it's still using one of our RG32 shaders somewhere. And that would be, if we come back into stroke mix height, you can see these RG32s. And when we come into here, these are now RGBA32F. And I think that could be caused if we come into here, because it seems to be not the stroke. Wait, no, it would be the stroke. So line mix ES. Image get size. Oh. Wait, no, that's all fine. Image uniform E composited stroke. Okay, composited stroke is correct, I believe. I don't think there's any reason that would change. If we go to the stamp here. And then original image. I think I know what it would be. On stroke started, when we create the stroke buffers, these now need to be var result format. RID, or no, rendering device data format. And then if E is NP attribute stamp. Okay. That was my flaw, I believe. I guess we can also double check where else I'm using this. So result format there. Okay, so now there's only 2 places that reference that, and they're both correct. So now if we come back into test 2, we should be able to paint. We now have an image editor, basically. Oh, but I'm only painting on 1 stamp. Oh yeah, that's going to be a funny thing about this, is the fact that there's basically layers, but the layers are currently constrained to just have one thing or the other. So yeah, now I could do... Actually, why is it... Hang on. What if I put this to blue with that? Oh, okay. That's correct. I think because it was yellow, it was mixing in with the red, because there's such a low fall off on this paintbrush. We can change that, though. So yeah, now we have a good old-fashioned paintbrush, and we can do anything that we want with it. So I'm going to do... Let's change the opacity here. So we should be starting to see... Oh wait, no, we're not going to see anything there. So yeah, then our next step should probably be to figure out how to erase from this. Because yeah, right now, we don't have the ability to actually, like, remove opacity. We can just set the color. And add opacity as well. Like, you can see that I did that here with this. So if I come back into here and just set this to, like, white. So do I... Well, I guess... No, I guess I do need the ability to erase, because otherwise the player will have no idea, or the user will not be able to, like, set the alpha channel independently. Okay, what's our things here? Render 2 things. We can now go to our stamp here. Print. Could not convert image. Those are good. New buffers. That. Stack. See. Height map. Print. So we don't need this at all. We can just pass here. Saving to, recomputing, compute that. So we don't need this because that's going to be just a billion things that we don't need. But okay. A nice start. And actually, we should have all of our, if we go to... So the stamp itself now has the ability to add. So we should be able to, like, min and max and add these, right? Oh wait, but it's not going to change anything, I don't think, until... Yeah, because it doesn't change unless we move it, so we should have that also in here as a... Let's see, if we go to stamp, this should be notify movement. In fact, most of these should be notify movement. And in fact, this should probably just be changed to be like notify change or something, but oh well. But okay, now if we come back into here, we can now set this to like add and max. And so we got crazy things that we can do with these. They're beautiful, they're wonderful. And then we can child them to things like this and then move this stamp around. Isn't that lovely? And we can like move things across things. Oh, but... Oh, I see. because this is a mix. So this one we could also change to add, and then they'd be order independent. Yeah. And then you can see that. Okay. So I want to play with this a bit more. Let's set this color to like black again. And let's see our fall off at 1 with a like high opacity brush. So you can see how slow or low the fall off is. So I think I should make this brush, yeah, logarithmic brush, I think, because, you know, I think for a lot of people, 0.5 would probably be, or like 0.45. Yeah. Around here feels like the most sensible thing. Put this back to white. Okay. This is also just a good, like, a solid, like, painting program. So I think my next step is also, the random noise would be good. Erosion and stuff like that. But yeah, now we can paint on textures, and I can use these in any way that I want. Because yeah, right now I just have my attribute debug material. Oh, and we should... What if we turn this to white, actually? Oh, wait, but... That's going to be... Oh, because both of these are add filters, so if we just put these to mix... So put this... I'm going to play with these a little bit. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Let's save all, then. And that means we don't actually need this test anymore, because now these just reference their own things. Oh, I guess we do need it. Why do we need this? Also, why do we have strokes here? We should be saving all here. Oh, but that doesn't include the stamps yet, or the attribute stamps. So if we go to .stamps, or like save all, okay. Just for s in el dot attributes for, no, so this is going to be at for e, or for s in el dot get attribute stamps at. There we go. So now we should be able to save everything. And that should do this. Didn't quite work. What happened there? Could not create uniform sampler for NP attribute stamp. Min height, max height. Sampler this. Failed to create texture from an invalid image. And that's because save element here probably does something wrong. Oh, because this again needs to have... So let's do... What if we just got a blank image here? We should probably just have a function called like get format. In fact, I'm going to have that on the base element, or no. Yeah, let's have this here. It's just going to be function get format return RGBA, no, image. Let's say that's our default format. And then every single time we convert raw, we actually don't need to have that do its thing. Terrain. So a whole is basically a stamp. And we're going to have this, instead of doing this, it's going to be function get format turn image.format rg or r8. And then, yeah, we will not have that. Because now convert raw can do this exact same thing by just doing get format. And that means a lot of stuff here, I think, won't need to be necessary. So we can have this also do get format. Format, oh wait, no. Format RGBF, so we're going to have this as well. Got attribute stamp as well. Okay. And that's the only place format is referenced there. And so now we actually can have... Do we do anything with the image format here or image format elsewhere, like here? Yeah, so now we just need to have this be e.getFormat. And I should soon add the ability to also paint onto the stamps or the holes, though that's not as important, so I'm not going to bother very much. But okay. Wait, no, we don't need that. We need tests. So what's happening here? Device is empty, function type set raw on base null. Raw image convert format. So set raw should do that there. And this should be image format. And now we actually just need to duplicate the image and do that, instead of creating the raw image elsewise. Okay, so what is our main issue now? Terrain element at line 51, we can't set line. Set raw in base node 3D cannot convert argument 2 from nil to int. Well, it's not nil then. Oh, I see. It probably is, because I didn't return here. Thank you, Godot, for not type checking that. The same way you didn't type check RIDs, which is cool. I like that. Unsupported format for blank. Okay, so that means... Why exactly? RGB A8. You know, just set this to format RGB AF by default. Because we only have like 5 things here. Or we have literally like 4 classes to consider. We have the stamp, we have the hole, we have the terrain stamp, which is different than the attribute stamp, because it has this format. And then we have the actual element, which is the base form. And that's what has convert raw, set raw, stuff like that. And that also means we actually don't need convert raw, because I don't think it's used anywhere. Oh, it's used in a few places. Okay, never mind. Oh wait, no, it's set raw that's not used. Maybe? Yeah, that's literally only used here. We can just do that like this. Oh, right. And then we need to have, if not, image. So try this again. So why is this not working? Unsupported format. Where would that be? That would probably be under renderer. Data format from image. Yeah, why does this say, why is this error message so jank? I thought error messages told you where they were. But no, it emits from directly inside the C++. Okay. Var f equals image dot format keys image get format unsupported image format %s f format cannot be used on its own. Ah, nice. So you can't actually get the keys of this enum. Alright, well, we can at least do, like, just image get format. So unsupported. Okay. So yeah, who's returning 0? So get format, image format, format RGBAF, RGBAF, R8, RGF. There's nothing here returns 0, which is L8. It feels like Godot is just fucking with me. Like, it feels like Godot just, like, because I wasn't able to use the setters and getters. They just didn't run. And then it just forgot, like, that one of the properties existed. So I'm thinking this is just a thing where it just doesn't want to run the function that it's supposed to run. Okay, so let's say unsupported. Sampler uniform image mix submit all. Okay, so that's coming from there. So what image? I think maybe now it's because all of the images are broken. So I basically want to have, like, you know, if we close this and then we start this again, because now we can just paint onto the thing. Godot's going to crash, probably. No, I guess it's fine. Also, the plugin doesn't seem to be working, so if we turn this off and on again. Okay, there we go. And now if we go back to this attribute stamp, I guess it's not going to do anything yet. Redraw all? $4.28. Why wouldn't it set the thing correctly? Okay. At least we can create the new images on load. So now we can paint. And that will not have anything here because there's nothing here to paint on. But we should then be able to just gradually fill this in. Isn't that beautiful? It's like that one game, The Unfinished Swan. See, this is why we have the triumphant music here. Is this a mix? Feels like an ad. Turn this to black then. See what that does. Oh, okay. Is it because this one is ad? Huh. Oh, maybe it's just because this isn't fully opaque. Yeah, if we turn this to 100%. There we go. Okay. So yeah, we can paint, we can do all sorts of things. We can then set this to white, so that still works well. This is my beautiful land. This is my beautiful land terrain. Oh yeah, I forgot. This thing is only... We can't actually go beyond the bounds of our stamps, though. Which is a funny limitation to have. So yeah, eventually, the next thing we need is like the ability to paint outside the bounds of the stamp. And like have the stamp automatically be resized, I believe. That'd be a good thing. And let's also have, so when we print... We no longer need these because these were where I was trying to figure out like crazy bugs with the stamp. Or with the stroke buffer for some reason. That, yeah, I still don't know what those actually, like, what the solution was for those. But okay, look at how nice that is. And then we can save all, and that should work. Okay, look. And then it saves our main attribute, which is there. And it's all saved correctly. And then our stamps should also be in here. Look at these. And look at those. Okay. So we now have the ability to actually paint. So we can still do those. So how do I want the system to work? How do you edit them? How do you view them? All right. I'm going to sit back down. So, okay. The next thing that I want is the ability to set the blend modes for the actual painting itself, and then probably the ability to erase. Well, actually, so height mode, remove green, and then paint mode, remove alpha. And that would actually be, yeah, that'd be much easier than adding like a separate tool. So I'll just have that as like a little drop down here. So let's, I guess we just save all. Wonderful. Close that. Widget. The first step on any of these beautiful actions is we go to the paint settings. And then like a label. Raw mode. Because yeah, eventually, as I said, I also want to have like more informative modes for each thing. So like, you know, terrain should have just a separate like dedicated add height, remove height level, stuff like that. Classic terrain modifier tools. Combo or option button. And this will have our things here like mix, add, min, max, and erase, our new thing. And that means when we come up to element here, what am I looking for? Where's our plugin? This one's now going to have erase. And erase does... how am I going to do this on the main terrain itself? So yeah, like these image mixes, maybe I could figure out a way of making it so that it like reduces the opacity of the underlying image. No, I think what I would do is just basically wait, why do these go 0, 1, 2, 4? Wait, what? 1, 2, so 0, 1, 2, 3. This should be 3, right? There's 0, 1, 2, 3. What? Why is this one not 3? I should probably figure that one out. So I'm gonna... Let's go back to image mix, or... Yeah, image mix RGBA, image mix RG. So yeah, this one's supposed to be 3. I'm almost certain. I think that just never worked. So if we come back into here now, test. Let's come back into test 2. Oh wait, our stamps are broken. What? Why is our stamps broken? Did I not save the scene here? So we need to go back to main attribute or stamp. Because yeah, this is supposed to be that. And this one is supposed to be that. So, test this again. Does it just create an... No, okay. I think I just didn't save. Which is funny. And then, save stamp. Oh, right, because the strokes here... Wait, what? Man, when we save an element, this should just do stamp or e dot strokes. Yeah, e dot strokes dot clear. Oh wait, no, we literally do that. What? So when we do this and we save all, it should clear this. What? Because yeah, eventually I want those strokes to be used for undo and redo, where it can take the base image and then reapply the strokes if you like delete one of them. But for now, I'm not going to bother. I will bother with that when I figure out a way of doing it. Okay, but what was I actually doing here? I was double checking to make sure that the height map actually works where we do max here. So yeah, I think this just never worked properly. Wait, I forgot this. It is a bit weird editing this with transparency, but okay. And then what I want to do is I think for the typical height map, we would actually do like else if source.blend mode equals 4, result equals 0.5. Or mix. No. I think it'd just be 0. So yeah, the erase flag is kind of hokey for these image mixers. Wait, no, but for RGBA, it actually does, yeah, let's say vec4 original dot RGB 0. Oh wait, but we literally do that here with this. Huh. Oh, well that's actually fine. Because we set the color attribute. Yeah, okay. In fact, that just means that we can have the original here. Okay. So if we come back into here, if we, for example, test this erase... Oh, wait, but that means that we should actually have the, Okay, I see what I need to do. This needs to be just results. This needs to be color A. And then for all of these, we need to actually do, vec4 color 1. And then this one is the only one that's unique in that it doesn't have 0 there. Okay. GLSL? So that's image mix RGBA. Too many arguments, float, RGB min, RGB, vec4. Oh yeah. Okay. And so now what I should be able to do is I should be able to set this to erase. Oh. I guess if I open it up again, I should be able to set this to erase. I guess I'm fucking dumb. So one of these has the blend result, or like stamp. Because this is literally the blend mode here, and this blend mode has 5 blend modes. Oh, but I didn't actually... We need to turn it off and on again. And then we go test 2. Did that work? Probably. I think that's some exiting bug. But basically now what I can do... Okay, I guess I'll just fucking close it and then restart it. I guess it forgets to, like, recompile the code. I like Godot. What was that bug that I fixed like 5 hours ago? That was like, just restart the fucking thing. I like this one too, where it runs code before the plugin can start. Okay. Erase. There we go. Okay. So erase here just blends in with 0. Wait, actually, yeah. I guess that's fair. Yeah. Mixed terrain hunt result color.g. So that does that. Actually, wait. Does this... It doesn't seem like it's doing quite a lot. I guess that's fine. Because what I wanted to actually check was these. So when we erase with this, okay, that's exactly what I wanted it to do. So now we can actually, we have the ability to remove portions of it, though act naturally erasing something that doesn't exist doesn't do anything. But okay. And then we could do, for example, paint on this with like maximum opacity black. And now, isn't that wonderful? We have the ability to erase attributes with a whole like mask here. And this actually works. This actually just completely lets us have like bypass. I was worried about like how complicated it could be to set up layer masks and stuff, but we now have the ability to just erase. So we could add a stamp on top of a thing, set it to erase mode, brush where you want it to not apply, and Bob's your uncle, you now have a non-destructive erase tool as well. You know, in addition to all the other non-erase or non-destructive tools you have. So we can just delete sections like that. And then you can apply other sections on top of it, and it'd work just fine. Like you could have another one of these set to add. Isn't that just dandy and perfect? And we can move this whole thing up and down as we please and rotate it all around. Okay. And so now our next step is to add these modes to the blend mix, or the stroke mix shaders. What is an elegant way? I wonder if there's a way that I can add defines in, Godot shaders. Because I don't think you have the ability to like set a define flag on your shaders. I guess I should check that though. So if we go to GLSL in the renderer, load shader here, create shader from spur 5, get spur 5. So RD shader source, only meant to be used with the render device, so get version list. Oh wait, hang on. The base compilation error, oh wait, no. Returns the list of compiled versions. Oh wait, no, that's not what I want. Yeah, it'd be nice if we had the ability to set defines at the top of this, so that way I could just have like one shader instead of like 500,000 variations of it. But okay. We're going to do vec4 result equals oh wait, we literally have stroke color. So that's our result there by default. So I'll just make sure that this works still. So like vec4 result equals color, or which obviously there's no reason this wouldn't work, but you never know. So yeah, where would I paint on this yellow? Let's paint some blue or red. Beautiful. Still works, and then we can go into the height stamp itself. We can add some green and red here to raise it up or lower it or whatever I'm doing here. Oh yeah, because it's already green and stuff, so lowering the opacity is actually doing more. Then let's do a larger radius, but a shorter or a larger fall off as well. I want an even larger radius and even larger fall off. No, actually I want a different fall off. I want that to be linear. I think square root is like the typical, like the best fall off, typically. But okay. Did that? Oh, that did work. It was just much faster than I thought it was. Okay. So yeah, we have our crazy poo-poo landscape. And then my next step is to get other things in here. So let's see. So we need a int. Let's say uint blend mode. And then let's close that for now, because now we need to actually, we're going to need to do some things here when we render stroke. So the stroke will actually need to keep track of its blend mode. Paint stroke. Export var blend mode. There we are. So this will now be 32. There we are. And this should be, if we go to paint stroke, this should be by default mix, of course. And then if we come into whatever we're coming into, blend in something or other. My brain's working in underdrive right now. Right, I need to do the widget. Basically, I need to get this widget configured correctly so that when we set this option button, it should, by default, select 0. Okay. And then basically when we do stroke, that is in the plugin itself. And actually we're going to do var paint blend mode return or get return change this, rename this to raw blend mode. Okay. Let's clamp this from 0 to blend, no, np terrain blend mode dot size as np terrain. Well, that's guaranteed to be the same. So this is now clamped to anywhere from mix to the other thing. So allow reselect. If true, the currently selected item can be selected again. That doesn't matter. So now when we go into paint here, stroke, where's that? Plugin. Terrain stroke, or no, paint stroke, new, yeah, here. S.blend mode equals element widget. Paint blend mode. Okay. And then that should do nothing but we should be able to see it. So if we go to project, turn the plugin off and on again, and then go to test 2, I'd say, we should be able to see that painting here. We can see add and blend and mix and all that stuff. And if we then, I'm going to actually then get to the shaders. So do we have switch cases in? Nah, you know what? I'm just going to do, I don't like switch cases, honestly. Because they just have so much nesting. Okay. So result equals stroke color. And then otherwise, result equals, so we're going to actually have this be original. Vec4 equals that. And then we should also have our value here. Image result. No, that's fine. Okay. So almost all of this will be exactly identical. What are our modes? Blend, or mix, add, min, max. And then erase. And I think erase is the only one that's different between the two of them. So this is stroke, color, plus original. And then yeah, we'll just do min of, what am I doing here? Yeah, min, max. Result equals vec, let's say vec2, no, vec4, so this is the height. So that means we get the original R, vec3, 0. Okay. So this is original and stroke color. So yeah, these are almost identical except for this shader here is now going to be original.rgb 0. Because, as I mentioned before, for these ones, the alpha channel is the green channel. So we just set all of these channels to 0. Okay. So that should work now. Oh, well. It will if we figure out the undeclared identifier blend mode, because it's stroke blend mode. There we go. Okay, so now if we close this, reload it, we should now finally be able to erase. And that should also work with these here. So if we do paint settings, erase, it should just erase it as if it doesn't exist at all, rather than flattening it. So if we then did save all here, we should just see something that has still red, because it only erases the green channel, because that's what the opacity is there. And then for our stamps here, we should have the exact same thing where we can do erase. And so we should see something disappearing. I'm actually, this thing is all fucked up though. Oh, right, because this is itself an erase, so if we erase the eraser, we then see more opacity. Okay, that's fun. Let's go to this one, though. So now we can actually, like, erase individual brush strokes. Okay, that was a much easier than I thought it would be. So yeah, now we have all our things here. Subtract. Oh wait, do I want subtract? I should probably have subtract. Or what I could do is... yeah, I could have subtract as just another mode there. Basically, the way that that would work is instead of having a separate mode and then the shaders and all that stuff, it would just consider it to be the add mode, but flip it. Or like just negate all of our values here. But okay, that's awesome. We now have an eraser, and we can change the opacity here. Oh wait, no, distance doesn't do anything anymore. So yeah, we change this to that. No, the opposite. Radius like that. Fall off to be lower. Look at that. We can erase the whole universe as if it were all a bad dream. And we can start anew and start afresh. We're then going to do green. This whole world will now be green. And also you can see it mixes in a little bit of that old color there, because it still has the underlying colors, which admittedly may not be preferable, but I think it's fine. And then we could have this, erase this, as if nothing ever existed. Wait, what did I do? It did something weird there. I guess I'll leave it for now. Let's change this to red then. Is this red or orange? Am I dumb? Why does this look so different? I mean, I guess it has like a smidge of red. Oh, right, but this is a mix. Or this is an add filter. Well, that actually didn't change very much. I am seeing a bug where it seems like it's like swapping incorrectly sometimes. So like when I press the button, it undoes a stroke. Yeah, you can see there where I move it, I believe. Or where I click this, I think. What exactly does that mean? It seems like it's specifically when I'm clicking the UI widget by accident. Okay, I'll chalk that up as another bug. Okay, and we don't need to have stroke started printed anywhere. Because yeah, we no longer need to know all of that stuff. So it's not perfect yet. You can see it still does have bugs where sometimes the painted value forgets some strokes. Buffer swap issue? Because yeah, basically I have like an original texture and a result texture, and I swap between them. And yeah, it seems like sometimes it just doesn't like that. But okay. We now have a beautiful clown vomit here. And in the actual game, naturally I would not be painting the colors of the terrain. I would be painting things like how much grass there is and stuff like that. And this means that I can now non-destructively edit all of that as one whole piece. What was the other thing that I wanted to add that I forgot to put in here? Oh yeah, subtraction. I could, yeah, I'm gonna put that as like another mode, I think. Or we could have the strength of the thing go negative. Actually, can I just, hang on, if I'm in here, do paint settings, if I get the color here, I'll figure that out at some point. Maybe what I'll have is the add mode can just have a negative value as well. But okay, let's go to my widget. Should be somewhere in here. Probably under editor, which is not opened. That explains why I didn't see it. Yeah, basically these two no longer exist. Oh wait, and then distance slider. Okay. And then the plugin itself, distance slider. Or like paint distance. Yeah, we no longer have that. This is just going to be direction times roll camera times 4 times like 0.25 or something like that. And then paint or like distance. So yeah, there's no signal distance changed. And then, oh yeah, because we're switching back and forth. So yeah, that still doesn't quite work. So if we do this, turn this off and on. What did I change? Oh yeah, I changed that. So yeah, the next bug is it breaks when you switch between tabs. So yeah, because it's something about enter tree versus ready. Because I know exit tree, I think, is called, but then enter tree is called again, but then ready is not called again because it's not considered ready again. So anything that I do in exit tree, I need to undo in enter tree and vice versa. Yeah, I could put subtract in there right now. That would just be, we'd close this. We're just gonna have like a invert colors here. Mesh. What would I do? I'm trying to think. Do I want to do it as one of the modes? I think I'll do it as one of the modes. Why not? Basically, that would do, if we go to the plugin now, subtract. Anytime we use the blend mode in the renderer, image mix here, we are going to, oh wait, but, oh wait, no, okay, that's fine. We will have to do that in the shader for some of these, so that means I might as well just do it in the shader for all of them. So 5 is just going to be stroke color, or original minus stroke color. And I'm going to flip these around so that way, like that. Okay, so those work, and then image mix RGBA. That should be original plus this blend mode. Let's do original minus color. RGB 1. And I think this is much more similar to the image mix RG. Oh wait, not quite. We'll just do minus stamp height. Okay. Oh wait, no, and that should be 6, obviously. Wait, what? 1, 2, 3, this should be 4 and 5. Am I... Wait, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How am I, like, smoking crack so much? Okay, well that explains why the erase didn't do what I thought it would do. Okay. RGBA. Was it stroke mix or image mix? Stroke. Oh, right, because I fucking did it wrong. Yeah, because this is supposed to be source, blend mode. Okay. So now if we come into here and we do blend, whatever. Test 2. Come into here. We should be able to get, so for example, what is this stamp? This thing. What if we change this to just erase? Or we change this one. We can change these to like, oh wait, no. We don't need that. We're going to swap this to like erase. Okay. Now it does more of what I expected, which is erasing the terrain that was there. Kind of. I think. Oh yeah, because the green does that. And does that do what I expected it to do? Because it should set it to... Oh wait, no. It can't do quite what I think it should do, which is actually set the green channel of the other stamps to 0, because that's not how stamps work. They only edit the height map, and the green channel is just the opacity, so it can't change the opacity of another stamp. Okay. But we could have an erase branch on top of this thing. Could we? Actually, wait, hang on. No, we couldn't. They don't quite work the same way as the other branches. They don't have the green value baked directly in. Well, okay. And then if we close the whole fucking editor and start it over, we should then be able to see the subtract variable, or the subtract mode work. Why does it opens it twice for some reason? Oh wait, no, because I keep pressing Shift-Control-Q to explicitly bring it up, but then I manually open it in the start menu anyway. Okay, but now we should be able to subtract, and that should... Oh wait. As soon as the plugin gets its head in order. That should have done something, so if we add here... Oh, because this is not... So if we did like 100 to negative 100. There we go, okay. So now we can add and we can subtract, and that'll do something there. This terrain's a bit fucked up. I mean, admittedly, it's also especially fucked up because it's, weird, like it is. Oh, I forgot. Let's do mix, then. And then if we try erase again, that does what we thought it does, which is the green channel sets it back to 0, sets it back to the baseline. And then we can change the mode of these stamps here, so we could have this subtract, for example. No green anywhere. No green is allowed. Oh yeah, but it's also going to do... Oh wait, no, it doesn't change the alpha. I forgot. But we do see this crazy weird effect from the negative green, which is not quite the same as positive red. But okay, so a more interesting thing would be if we had some... I guess we could subtract this. Or min this, or max this, or whatever. Yeah, let's get paint settings. Let's get green in here. So we should be able to start seeing some reduced green. There we go. Okay. And I don't mind that the attributes go to negative because this isn't meant to be actually for painting. It's meant to be for like these attributes here. There is something weird with how the alpha works. Especially with these like multiple... You can see it gets way darker. Hang on. If I did... Oh wait, no, this is a subtraction. If we mix these, and then I should also have a bucket or something to just like reset the whole thing. Yeah, basically my main concern now is the fact that, well, I guess it doesn't make sense if we need higher fall off here and a higher radius. It feels like, well, now it looks just like normal. It looks exactly how I expected it to. Or, you know, how you'd expect it to look in like a normal paint application. Okay, well, I think maybe it's just a quirk of, like, blending the alpha channels, where it looked like, you know, super thin, but then as the two of them got close together, it was like, they, like, glued together in a weird way. Maybe it's something to do with certain colors? Yeah, you can see here what I'm talking about. It looks like the alpha is having a stronger effect than it's supposed to right there. And I don't know what the meaning of that is. And it seems like, okay, and it seems like it's to do with, like, you can see the strokes there. Like, if I put these two next to each other, it works as you expect. But if I do this and then that, it doesn't. Yeah, very, very weird, actually. So only certain colors. Let's just say, let's put that in bugs. Strange behavior when stroke goes near itself. But what does it mean exactly? What's the difference between line blend and stroke blend, actually? That would be the difference. If we get a line mix opacity here, something that it's doing is different than what it should be doing. Because all we do is we get the opacity, and then we add the opacity to there. I think we should mix the opacities. I think that's what's happening here. Basically, you have like this, and like here, it's like 75, you know, or like 10% opaque or whatever. And then you add another one, and then it's like, you just added another 10% blue onto that. Which is actually less than if you just add the opacities together, I think. Yeah, because I did see the same thing with the terrain as well. We can see this. If we did like a reddish yellow here. we can see exactly the same thing where this doesn't quite work how you expect it. The height is much higher than it should be in that weird pyramid shape. Interesting. I think, though, we have the internals of a really strong... Actually, wait, hang on, I just remembered. I can now do add here, so we could just have, like, a... You know, a low opacity reddish-orange, then we can just keep building and building height here, maybe. Oh, wait, but this thing is, like... Wait, what? We should be adding red. What if we subtracted? Oh, wait, but this thing doesn't have the... Okay, hang on. We need to have this. We need to go back to blend mode, add another item, and this will be just subtract. Then we close that. Eventually, it'd be cool to have custom blend modes, but that'd be very complicated. And then we should be able to turn the plugin on and off. I think this doesn't need to have the full reset, because then we should be able to do like a subtraction, and that is adding terrain for some reason. Did I do the stroke mix wrong? No. Original plus stroke color, original minus stroke color. But okay, now we have the ability to just pile on terrain exactly how you would expect in a typical terrain editor, instead of having to like you know, set a particular height and then paint to it. We can just like paint more and more and more. Which, oh, because this is set to erase. Okay, that makes sense now. And funny enough, because we have the max height and min height, that can go higher than anything. So hang on, I'm gonna go back to mix here, and I'm just gonna set this to, let's go green, all in. Big radius, low fall off. Flatten this back to what it should be. And then we can do an erase with a higher fall off. And we should get smooth. Look at that. Oh wait, hang on. Let's lower the lower the radius here. Look at how like cool this is. This is awesome. And then we can do a little bit of like red, and we should be able to just add here. It adds a little strongly. Let's subtract. Oh. So yeah, now we subtract the red. What if we erase the red? Oh wait, but that's just going to set it back to green. Hang on, let's just mix in. Gotta do this again. Mix in some green with no height. Yeah, we need to be gentle with our red, especially when we have these super high opacity things. Okay. And then we erase, because I want to have this here. So I'm going to make a little bowl here, and then I'm going to put some little hills inside the little bowl. So we're going to have a lower fall off about there. That, go to red, set low opacity here, set this to add. So yeah, eventually what I'd want is all of these internal things can be potentially or optionally hidden, and you're just handling like add terrain, erase, stamp, stuff like that. Let's subtract that, but let's do it even lower. And then let's have this potentially mix back in. So yeah, a blur would be nice. Or a blur and a flatten. And a flatten would just be, I guess we just, wherever we click, that's the uniform that we get. But I mean, we do have, it's mountains now. Kind of. Then let's do... Yeah, let's go back to mix. Let's set this back to green. So we're basically just going to flatten all this back. Yeah, because we have the tools that we need to make an extremely powerful terrain editor. And I think a lot of the major features would be then figuring out how to, like, just the tuning of it, you know, because, like, the terrain here... is too pointy. And that's a thing that's easy to fix, because I can just, like, set the numbers differently based on testing. So I think what I should do now is I have everything I really need to make the world in At the Ends of Eras again. So I should start rebuilding the world of At the Ends of Eras. Because I have a lot of the things that I need for that. And then as I go, I can start developing the, like, tools and tuning default values so that they look nicer. You know, because there's a few other things that I need as well. Like, I want the ability to run arbitrary shaders that you, like, select from a drop-down. You know, right up here, you just have, like, shader, pick shader, run it on this thing. So that way you could do things like erosion, I guess the blurring and stuff like that. Yeah, so let's go back to red. Let's go very low opacity, like maybe 1 even. And then this should be good for that. And then we add here. Too low. Let's do 3. 4. There we go. So now we have a much more traditional terrain editor experience here, where I can just, like, paint in things, and we can then lower this or increase this fall off so it's a bit more pointed. So we could do things like make mountains here. Okay, look at that. It's starting to take shape. So yeah, big things. The ability to smooth terrain, the ability to erode terrain. Because I can fake erosion pretty well just by eye, but that's just because I've done it before in, like, Blender and stuff, so I kind of have an idea of what I would want with it. Wow. Okay. And I think also the ability to hold the mouse in one place would be nice, because that is a typical, like, painting thing. Or like a terrain painting thing, not so much a typical traditional painting thing. So I'm divided on how to do that, really. But okay, we got a lovely little mountain now. So this would be like a couple 100 meters, or this would be, I don't know how big this would be. Yeah, I guess a few 100 meters high, since this is like a 20 or 1024 by 1024 thing. And then, as always, we can just move it around. And I'm going to change back to my traditional thing here. So we can do shader remap here. No shaders, because we're just going to do our topological map here. Set this back to what it was. There we are. Now we have a more typical, like, height map thing. And so yeah, more advanced interface design would be the next step of, like, being able to quickly flip between like viewing your attributes versus viewing the topology versus viewing like your like final render result would be awesome. And so now we should be able to see the outline again. Does that still exist? Does that work anymore? Like if we come into here, there should be like an outline somewhere. Oh, I see it. It's very faint though because it's an additive blend, I think. I should probably just have it also have like a black border at some points. But what I'm going to do, I want to paint this with just an eraser. It'll be like, you know, here, high opacity. I'm going to say like that, that's fine. And I think that means that when we come into here and do the color, let's make this more dark blue or something, like a grayish blue maybe. So that way I can see these stamps better. And we can see our brushes better. And then I do bigger radius. And actually, honestly, I still kind of want to do the tracing to get the exact point where I'm pointing the brush. But at least here, it's good enough. You know, because as we get closer, the height map gets less accurate because it's based on the 0 position. But yeah, it works most of the time, so I'm fine with that. But yeah, let's just erase some of this edge here so we get a nice smooth border between this stamp and like the outside world. Now that we have the power to just set that very easily. Look at that. Okay. Alright, that seems like a perfect place to end off because I've done what I need to do. And it's 4 hours, so I guess that's it. Alright. Goals for the day done. I will be back Thursday with Friday. What day is it today? It's Thursday? I don't know. I'll be back someday with Kitty Found a Camera once the build is released on Steam and people get to play it and get feedback and stuff like that. But it is on itch, so if you want to play it there, that's also where it is. But okay, thanks for watching. See you later.